We're back.
We're back.
So you were talking shit on the dude who made Fable?
Peter Molyneux. He's a cool guy.
Okay, so he made Fable, Black and White, and Theme Park?
I'm gonna bring up his full gameography. That tells him all the games. But first, I got a Tinder message I gotta reply to.
Oh boy.
Not replying to that one. That's for sure. Peter okay, I gotta spell it properly. Peter So, Peter Molyneux created Dungeon Keeper. Well, he created Populous, which is like really popular.
Oh, that's the Genesis game, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know actually. I think it was a PC game. It might be on Genesis.
It was probably ported to the Genesis, and it was probably not as good.
Dungeon Keeper was like huge. People love Dungeon Keeper. Theme Park was like it was as big, but it wasn't like these weren't like blockbuster games, but they were like games with like some serious insight to them, you know?
Okay.
Where like whoever was in charge of them was like, "Whoa, this guy's got something going on here."
Okay.
Right? It's like because they're very simple on the outset, and yet you can go quite deep in them.
How would you compare them to Tim Schafer?
They're totally different people. Totally different people. Well, Tim Schafer's the adventure guy who wrote like funny dialogue. He's not even like a game designer. He just writes funny dialogue. Is all he does.
Oh, I thought he was a game designer.
For adventure games. I mean, technically he's a game designer, but he designs adventure games where he just writes funny dialogue and things with
Well, he made
crazy
Psychonauts.
characters. Yeah, those are just crazy characters. Like the game of Psychonauts isn't very good. It's mostly like the craziness of the characters.
Oh, I like it. I like it. It's a good platformer. Then again, you don't like any game that's like before 2003.
You can back that. You can bring that date up quite a bit actually.
I was being generous with 2003.
I think at this point it's like 2012. I think.
Well, you didn't like Ratchet.
Maybe.
You didn't like Ratchet and Clank?
Not really. No.
Oh well. Okay, never mind then. Yeah. All right. Then 2012. You will be my modern game friend.
Yeah.
Everyone else will be. Actually, all the games that I'm currently playing with everybody else, they're all retro. Like Metroid, this one, Metroid Prime, is the oldest one, or the youngest one, currently being played.
The youngest one. Everything else is older.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So everything's before 2000.
We should get a more modern game then.
Well, that's all. I mean, we're playing Never Alone, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't have to touch my leg when you told me that.
Well, I was just like tapped. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I realized. No, we're playing the Eskimo game.
So apparently there was a game called Fable: The Journey.
Oh, that sounds absolute garbage.
Released in 2012. Considering Fable 2 was garbage and Fable 3 was garbage, Fable: The Journey, which was released in 2012, I'm not surprised I never heard about it.
Yeah. So this room sucked ass. So trying to figure out this room, you think, oh, I gotta scan this shit. Well, actually, you had to, if you watched earlier, you have to destroy, like, statue heads.
You have to destroy statue heads.
And then go into ball mode and go into the hole that's there. And then you...
So you had to put your balls in the hole.
Yeah. It was a pain in the ass.
So you put your female balls in the hole.
The point is figuring out the puzzle in that room was just a pain in the ass because you're literally just going around the room scanning.
Whoa, look at that. It's like there's certain things that you can break, but there's certain things you can't break.
Right.
Okay, so you put your female balls in the hole, and now you can break shit, and now you can go up there. This is really annoying. And it takes 2 hits. Why does it take 2 hits?
This part's less annoying. It was the room before that. Can you hear the DJ's bass? Two rooms down?
Yeah. Has he got more cocaine for us?
Oh, I'm sure he's got a lot of cocaine. Yeah. He's probably got a lot of weed too.
That guy seems like a cocaine weed.
Yeah, there's a lot of drugs that go on over there. Yeah, yesterday when Red was over, before I took him home, we just passed his door, and he's just like, "Did you smell all that weed coming from there?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." So get a load of this room. Oh, what is this? You ready for these two guys?
Weren't these guys the guys you were fighting for?
Yes.
Yeah.
And now they're blocking my upgrade.
No.
Those assholes.
So you just kill them, right? Yeah, there's one dead.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say in this Metroid Prime playthrough that I have decided to start collecting PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 games.
You started collecting TurboGrafx games?
Yes. I'm going to start doing that.
There's more of these assholes.
Yeah. Keep popping up. What do you think happens if they keep coming?
Then they just keep coming.
Ow. That won't hurt. And along with that, I got my Ouya converted into an EverDrive of sorts for all the games basically made before 1995. So we can play Commodore 64 and Atari games.
We can play Commodore 64 and Atari games.
Yeah, because I have no desire to collect those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I have no desire to play Commodore 64 or Atari games.
I think we can play like Pitfall. See how far we can get.
Yeah. Before we like find something better to do with our lives.
Fuck this.
Yeah.
We'll play Asteroids.
There's something very interesting about Atari games though, is that they were all gender neutral.
Yes.
And that they were importantly gender neutral because it led to the video game crash, right? No, not the gender neutral part, but Atari
it was the fact that there were just so many games, and there were so many shitty games.
Exactly.
And there was no way, like, the internet has led to a lot of people not buying those shitty games.
Yeah. Because
so, like,
beforehand, people didn't know if a game was shit or not, right? Because it's like, there's a bunch of games in the store. Gee, I hope this one's good. Fuck, it's shit.
And the video game rental back in the day was very helpful. Like, my parents refused to buy a game unless I had previously rented it from the store and liked it.
Yeah, but you couldn't rent Atari games.
No, and that was the problem then.
Yeah.
So there was no real magazines to like give you video game reviews. There was no internet, and there was no game rental places.
Well, so Atari crashed the whole games industry because video games were starting to be quite popular throughout the 1970s with Pac-Man and Pong and all that shit. You know, the funky Donkey Kong, whatever it was. And then Atari put out like quite a popular console. Then they made like a whole pile of shit games for it. The most notorious of which was the E.T. game, which is known as the worst video game of all time. Not only because it was a terrible game.
I don't think it's the worst.
Well, it's known not because it's the worst game, but because it's basically destroyed the video game industry because it was like super hyped. It was fucking garbage. So people bought it, and they were like, why the hell did I spend money on this? And they never bought a video game again, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's known as the worst video game of all time.
So imagine... So I can actually... I was all hyped up for the new Sonic game when that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, you can be all these characters. It switches between 3D and 2D.
Yeah.
You know, when they show the demo of it, of course they're going to show the best parts. I was like, oh, this looks pretty good, right? I was like, okay, it looks like a mix between the original Sonic and Sonic Adventure.
Okay.
And then I was offshore, and the reviews came out within hours of the game being released in stores, and they were horrendous. The game's broken. It's really lame. It's super sappy. It's basically for 4-year-olds to play.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, that's not what I was expecting at all. I was super sad because I'm a big fan of the Sonic games.
Right.
And my favorite one is Sonic 3.
Yeah, but see, that was the last good Sonic game. Sonic has never really had good games aside from the first 3.
Well, I mean, Sonic and Knuckles is the 4th one.
Yeah, kind of, but not really.
It's more of
it's
a
like
package
they
of
added
the 3rd one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They just added a new character to the 3rd one.
Sonic CD.
And honestly, like
Sonic CD is good.
Well, honestly, what was Sonic 3 other than Sonic 2 with new levels? And what was Sonic 2 other than Sonic 1 with new levels? And Tails.
I don't know. I think there was the mechanics when we were... Anyways, it was more Sonic. Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 were pretty good.
Right.
I still like the old school ones more, but I'm like, okay, 3D Sonic, it's not so bad. I can get behind that, and then ever since, it's just been just pure garbage. And there's only been 2 games since that have been any sort of decent. Yeah, this guy's taking me forever.
Yeah, he's just a big fucking hungry bullet sponge bitch.
Well, I'm like,
and he's got all these giant fucking
I'm like,
spikes
do I shoot his spikes? Do I shoot his like he only flashes red occasionally?
Because you gotta shoot his spikes.
Well, he spits this like ice breath, and then he like panics for a second. I noticed that's when he gets takes
So
the
you
most
decided
damage.
you're gonna shoot the wall.
Well, I was getting the more missiles. So
Oh, I see. Okay.
So there's only Sonic Generations is pretty good, but I don't have it. And then
They tried to do Sonic Adventure games. They started like making adventure components to Sonic games, where there was like a narrative and there were like cities that you could go and talk to, like it was like Pokemon or something.
oh, well, that was Sonic Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what the hell was that about?
Yeah, there's a couple of moments in Sonic Adventure I'm like, this is absolute shit. See, he turns red for a second, and then that's it.
Yeah.
After
I guess that's just what you gotta do.
But I did play Sonic Lost World on the 3DS, and I'm like, okay, some of the mechanics need a lot of work,
Right.
but I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was actually pretty good. Of course, the story was pretty lame,
Well, there you go.
but I'm like, this actually isn't. I felt like it was the same level as Sonic Adventure, if not a little better.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go.
But the fact is that a big name like Sonic can only come up with something that good since the 90s is quite sad to me.
It is because Sonic is such a like they had the TV show going. I liked the TV show when I was
yeah.
a kid. It was like a real property, and they just never actually transformed it into the modern age, right?
Well, look at Crash Bandicoot. Ever since he's left the original PlayStation, he's been garbage.
Yeah.
Same thing with Spyro. Look what Spyro's become. He's become an action figure that doesn't even look like Spyro anymore.
Oh,
yeah,
you
I finally
killed
killed him.
that
He just
fucking
randomly
thing.
fell.
Like,
it didn't make any sense to me.
That's just bad game design. There's no excuse for that. It's just bad game design. Yeah.
I literally just pumped missiles and shot him a bunch.
But anyways, let me go back a little bit to when I was talking about. So when the video games industry crashed in 1983, video games up to that point had been gender neutral, like importantly gender neutral. They were trying to go after the pinball crowd, in particular, people who were like into that sort of like weird sort of art, like bar game sort of thing. People who play billiards and stuff like that, right? That's what they're going after. And then the games industry crashed, and what brought it back was a completely different focus. All of a sudden, they decided they were going to focus on young boys, like specifically boys up until age like 12, right?
Right.
And that's what did it. That's what actually made the games industry succeed throughout those crucial 80s and 90s, was they suddenly they found a market that actually cared about video games.
It's funny you bring that up, because when the TurboGrafx came to the States, in Japan it was called the PC Engine, and it was
Right.
highly successful.
Right.
Well, when it came to the States, the people in charge were completely out of their element. They didn't know what they were doing. So when it came time to decide what games they were going to bring over from Japan to America to launch the console, they brought this like anime game and completely reskinned it into this gender neutral kind of thing,
Yeah, okay.
because they weren't going after teenage boys and younger. They wanted to be gender neutral, so they could maybe get the female market involved.
Sorry, when was this again?
This the TurboGrafx came out in '89 in the States.
89, right.
So that's not too far after Nintendo.
And did it succeed?
It did not.
Well, there you go.
But it was highly successful in Japan because they didn't fuck with it.
So here's the thing. Young boys were the ones who were super into video games for a very long time, right? And if you're a young girl, maybe you were kind of into video games in a sort of passive sense, but not as much as like the young boys were. When you were in the schoolyard, if you were a boy, you were talking about what kind of video game you were playing and that kind of thing.
Especially,
and how to beat the
me.
Nintendo game that you had just played, because that's how you got the cheat codes and shit. That's how you learned how to play the games. You talked to your friends, right? Because there weren't any like internet things or anything like that.
Well, here the funny thing about that was I could never talk to him because I had a Nintendo. Everyone else had Super Nintendo or the Genesis.
Okay, so
So I was like, I don't know how to fucking beat Contra. I only get 3 goddamn lives. Does anybody know a code or something? And nobody knew the Konami code. Because that's a strictly NES. That was like an NES thing back then. Remember?
Yeah. But it was a male.
So I had Mega Man, I had Contra, I had all these Konami and Capcom games. They're like, what? These are so hard.
Right, but this gets really important when you start talking about like the gender in video games debate, because you remember, let me compare this to comic books for a little bit. Who cares about comic books? Ain't the fucking girls, right?
Right.
Who carried comic books throughout the 70s and the 80s and all that shit when comic books were having their hard time and Marvel declared bankruptcy, and it was like actually really fucking tough for comic books, 80s and 70s, 80s and 90s, right?
Right.
It was the fucking men who did it. And then at some point, girls looked at it and said, fuck, this is like so male-oriented. It was like, well, yeah, because they're the ones who've been supporting it throughout all these years. We're at the point in video games where a lot of people are looking at it and saying, fuck, these are male-oriented. It's like, yeah, because males fucking earned it.
Yeah. I mean, of course there are going to be some women who like video games just like comic books.
Well,
but the majority...
Yeah.
You're making a media for who's buying your product.
Exactly.
I don't see the problem with it.
Well, I mean, a lot of other people do is the issue, right?
Yeah.
Oh, look, you can kill those things now.
Yep.
Oh, and now you can zip through time with the power of video editing.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm literally searching for where to go, and I have no clue.
So it's not Metroid Prime if we're not bitching about gender issues. And this time I'm bitching about the history of video games and how there are all of a sudden a whole bunch of like fake journalists who are of course girls writing for feminist magazines who complain about the fucking like gender issues in video games, and they're all full of shit because it's like the only reason video games exist is because males fucking adopted them. Otherwise we wouldn't have video games today.
Yeah.
Because young males actually adopted the fucking culture, and they said this is actually valuable. We'll do it. If we left it up to the general population, it would have failed.
It would have failed
again. It did fail. Is basically what it failed in the 1980s when we left it up to the general population. It took the young males to actually realize that this is a really cool thing, and that deserves credit. That deserves respect, and you're just not really seeing that respect.
Yeah. I see this block, and this is where scanning comes in. Needs extreme heat. Well, I don't have anything that can do that. Now where do I go?
You need George Michael.
So, this isn't the first time I tried. I'm really looking for this one specific room, and I was convinced I was in the right area.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, shit, where was it again? So I had found it before, and now I can't remember where it was.
That's a really irritating feeling. That's a really irritating feeling.
I was super frustrated here.
I know it's around here somewhere. My glasses are around here somewhere. I saw them over here. Are those my glasses there? Are they on the top of my head right now? I think they're on the top of my head. Nope, I just felt the top of my head. I only felt small metallic objects.
Yeah, so I was so convinced it was in this room. And I don't know if you noticed this about the Ice World. Everything looks the fucking same.
Yeah. But you know what I like about this game? They haven't left the planet yet. It's all like the same shit on one planet. Or it's all different shit on one planet.
I'm like, oh, it's this place.
Look, you can double jump up to these places. That's so crazy.
Yeah, and this is where it hits me. I'm like, oh, it was in here. It was. Now I'm going the right way.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
But that other room, I was like, where the fuck is this room? There it is. That was a revenge shot.
You got a revenge shot in.
Yeah. So more lore.
We learned the entry of the Chobo transcription. In the cradle will be proven to hope for intact gathering of artifacts, and it's all enchanted. And slowly suctioning our vigilance crumbles. Influence.
Now, I love main female characters in my video games. Because they usually make them, like, really strong. Kind of like a Miyazaki Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
You know? Samus is a badass. She's awesome.
Well, she's kind of like a nobody is what it is, right? She's
just a bounty hunter. Just another bounty hunter.
She has absolutely no impact on the gameplay, right? Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, it could be a male for all you know.
It could be like a fucking robot. You could be saying, "You're an alligator in a suit." It wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah, because you never see her.
Exactly, because like the character itself has absolutely no.
I mean, Red and I are playing the Wonder Boy games.
Okay.
And the sixth one had to be renamed Monster World because they're all like Wonder Boy and Monster Land, Wonder Boy and Monster World.
Yeah.
Well, the one that came out of the Genesis is Monster World 4, because the main character is no longer Wonder Boy; it's a girl.
Whoa, they got a girl in there.
Yeah. So that's a main female character. Then of course you got like a lot of modern games today, like Heavenly Sword. It's Nariko.
Yeah, but that's more like a male fantasy than like a female heroine.
Yeah, but she's a total badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you actually do see her. It's third person the entire time.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, there's not a ton of games where the main character is female. That you're playing.
There are a lot of games but you're right. It is like definitely usually. Well, it all gets back to like the male is the default gender, right?
Right, because males play the game. They want to relate to the character.
No. That's just straight up in society. That's just straight up through all civilization. Male is default. Male is always default. If I show you a picture of a Muppet, before you even hear its voice, before you even know its character, you'll be like, oh, look, he is a Muppet. Right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like you'll just assume that it's male. If I show you a picture of some kind of like new League of Legends monster, something that's not human at all, you'll just automatically assume that it's a male monster not because
a male voice.
Not because you've actually appropriated the male gender onto it, but just because it's just the default is male, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And that has to do with classical mythology. That's because all the myths were about male people. Not because males were the actors, and so if you were going to actually like hear about something important, then then the acting person would be a male.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there's another. I have an N64 game where the main character is female. Well, it's cyborg female, but a female nonetheless.
Okay.
There's a franchise that started on the Game Boy called Shantae. You're a genie, and you're female.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a goofy kind of comic game. It's kind of fun. But you really have to think about what games have your female characters as your main characters.
Yeah.
You can't just go, oh, it's okay. First one that comes to mind is Samus, Metroid.
Well, how many games actually have like memorable characters? Like that's what they gotta think, because
that's the other thing.
Very few video games have characters that you actually play for the character. Like very, very few.
Yeah, I mean you wouldn't play Metroid because of Samus. You play it because you're this bounty hunter traveling through worlds trying to destroy this crazy enemy.
Like if they made a new Metroid game where it was an alligator instead of Samus in a suit, you would probably still play it. It'd probably still be just as enjoyable. And you wouldn't even question whether the alligator was male or female. You'd probably just assume it was male. Right?
I guess.
But that's the thing, right? Because Samus is quite disposable, quite replaceable as a character.
I don't know about it in this time. If you have something named Metroid and Samus isn't your main character, I don't know if it would sell.
If I told you, what if we made Metroid Prime and we just made like the new version of Metroid Prime? It's just as exciting, it's just as revolutionary and everything. But actually, there's an alligator carrying the gun instead of Samus.
I think if you, I don't.
I think if the game mechanics were there, people would be like, "Sweet, a new version of Metroid."
I guess it would depend.
I mean, like think about Deus Ex. Like, who the fuck cares about J.D. Denton? Nobody cares about J.D. Denton.
I don't.
And that person, that character actually has so much more bearing on like the enjoyment factor of Deus Ex than Samus does on Metroid. And nobody fucking cares that it is particularly J.D. Denton. And think about Half-Life. It might as well be Mario. You might as well be playing Mario in a fucking like Half-Life suit.
Yeah, you don't know that Gordon Freeman.
Who the fuck is Gordon Freeman?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody says nothing. It does nothing. He's just a robot in a suit.
No, you make good points. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Those are just examples of like the default main character.
I have 3 doors to choose from, but I can only go through one.
Oh, this is a difficult decision.
Yeah.
We have 3 doors to choose from, and you chose the wrong one.
I chose the save room, and that's it. That's it.
Okay, and that means that we're done.
Yeah.
We're gonna complain about gender issues more on the next Metroid Prime.